Hi everyone, Russell here again. Today I'm just going to kind of do an overview of the trip, and I'll include mistakes that I made, recommendations that I have, things that I packed, and just kind of go over everything in detail. So if you want to do something like this, you can learn from my mistakes. So what we tried doing the entire trip was just be thoughtful and courteous to other travelers. So, if somebody was coming down a gravel road on a bicycle or hiking, we slowed way down to 10 miles an hour or less, so we didn't dust them out. And then that would give us the opportunity to ask them if they needed anything. And by doing that, we were able to hand out water a few times. And if somebody was broken down, we stopped numerous times. We got people on the road. Between whatever tools they had and stuff that I was packing, we were able to help others out. So, when you're 100 miles or even 20 miles out in the middle of nowhere, you don't want to pass and just leave somebody stranded. So we were able to do that a bunch of times. Kind of an unwritten rule that a lot of people don't follow is if somebody's driving faster than you, especially on a gravel road, you don't even have to stop. You just slow down and let them pass. So we got stuck behind numerous vehicles that would be going 20 miles an hour and just completely dust us out. And so that was a little frustrating at times that people just weren't aware of that. So we tried being courteous and was hoping for the same thing in return. All right. One of the first things you have to decide is where you're going to start at. So my recommendation, if you're going to do this trip in the first half of summer, start at the Mexico border. Second half of summer, start at the Canadian border. And the reason I say that is by us starting at the Mexico border, that gave an extra 3 weeks for the snow in the northern states to melt off. So we started at the end of June and didn't have to worry about snow anywhere. So it kind of worked out perfectly. So probably the most difficult part of this trip would be planning a route. And so what I did, and I'll provide a link down in the description, is I bought an SD card from GPS Kevin, which he maps routes all over North America for motorcycles. So I think I paid $43 for the SD card, and when you order it, you tell them what Garmin navigation system you have, and then they'll send you an SD card that's compatible. So they'll have like a blue route, which is kind of the standard one, and then once in a while you'll have like a green route, which is an easier, quicker, usually an asphalt route, and then sometimes you'll have a red route, which is difficult. And the only issues I ran into using this was there was a couple of routes where the Forest Service had basically shut down the road and put like 300 trees across the road. There's no way you could get through. And then one of the hard routes I tried going down was for motorcycles only. And then another hard route I went down was just like closed for the season, I guess. But other than that, other than those couple issues, it was seamless. 3,200 miles, GPS navigation. It would show other roads. So if you came up to like 3 or 4 options, it would clearly have everything mapped out for you. The only time I went the wrong way is when I wasn't paying attention, and I usually caught it pretty quick because I looked down at the navigation and I wasn't on a green, blue, or a red route. Here's a look at the navigation I have. I have a Garmin Nuvi. I bought this on eBay for like $30 used, and then $43 for the SD card. It really worked perfectly. So you can see there's kind of a red route taking off, and there's an arrow. The arrows do point north to south. So since I was going south to north, I was just going the opposite direction the entire time. And when these routes split up like this, so blue's the standard, the red's the difficult, they do meet back up. So it was really pretty easy. So by spending, I have less than $100 in the navigation and the maps, really eliminated at least 90% of the planning and work going into this trip. So I didn't want to be 100% reliant on the navigation system. So I opted with GPS Kevin to have a printout, and basically I think there's like 22 printouts, one for each day for the entire trip. And then this also helped plan. So like here's a great example. You know, I'll show you a green route, how many miles it is, a blue route, 32 miles, a red route. So it kind of gives you the options, like this little 6-mile red route. I tried going on that and it was closed. So this was kind of a backup to the navigation, and then helped kind of plan throughout the day as well. So if you followed along the trip, you noticed the first 7 days I had a trailer that was completely packed for camping. So I do love camping. I thought it would be a good idea, plus save some money on the trip. But after camping one night, I decided that was a terrible mistake. And the reason I say that is just because of the amount of time it takes to set up and tear down a camp in one day. And then, you know, after you're riding in the Talon 8 to 14 hours a day, completely covered in dust, you know, a shower is pretty much mandatory. You know, trying to clean yourself before getting in a sleeping bag just wasn't fun. So, you know, since I may never do this trip again, I wanted to make it as enjoyable as possible. So that was a mistake I made, thinking, hey, you know, we can only get a hotel every second or third night to save some money, but didn't work out that way. So something that's typically a good idea to do on long trips like this is to make hotel reservations, because, you know, for example, if you get around Yellowstone Park, you know, a lot of times things are sold out. On this trip, I was not able to make reservations ahead of time because, you know, some days we would do 100 miles and some days it would be 200 miles. So you never knew what the terrain was going to be. So I couldn't plan more than a day in advance. So now that I've made the trip, you know, you could probably, you know, follow my footsteps and be able to make reservations ahead of time, but I wasn't able to do that. So we did get a hotel every single night. I think one time in Del Norte, we just had to go like 20 miles to the next town because Del Norte was sold out. Yellowstone, anything around Yellowstone or Glacier National Park is going to be double or triple the price. So you just have to prepare for that. So you know, if you made all your reservations ahead of time and you had a breakdown, then that kind of throws a monkey wrench into everything. So I made reservations the same day for the entire trip. So fuel. I packed extra 7 gallons of fuel, and in my opinion, that's the absolute minimum you would want to take. And the reason I say that, because going across Wyoming, there was 230 miles between gas stations, and I basically pulled into Pinedale with, you know, on empty after using my 7 spare gallons of fuel. So 7 gallons, in my opinion, is the absolute minimum to carry for this trip. So as far as food goes, since we decided not to camp, we did eat at a restaurant every morning and every evening. And then some days we had to, you know, carry a lunch, and then other days we passed through a town and was able to eat as well. But we always had, you know, 3-4 gallons of water, kept the cooler full of ice, and then just filled our hydro flasks, our 40-ounce hydro flasks. So we basically had cold water all day long. So just a ballpark estimation, you know, over the 3,200 miles, I'm going to guess 80% of that or more was on gravel roads. So, you know, a UTV, depending on your driving conditions, you typically have your tires set to 8 to 14 pounds. Okay, but if you do that on asphalt, it's just going to ruin your tires really quick. So I ended up running my tire pressure at 27 pounds, and the tires held up really good. It wasn't tearing chunks out of there. Of course, on the gravel road, it rides a lot rougher, but that's what I found to work best. So just, you know, see what's going to work for you. So a couple things I highly recommend is the headset. And I'm not being paid by a PCI to say this, but when you're in your side-by-side 8 to 14 hours a day, that engine noise can kind of wear on you, but that headset really cuts the noise down. And then being able to have perfect communication at any speed or any RPM was really, really nice. I only brought 3,000 or 4,000 songs on my phone, and that was not enough. So if you're listening to music, more than 8 hours a day for 16 days straight, bring a huge playlist. So I'm really tired of all the music I have on my phone. The other thing is the windshield. I mean, we didn't have a ton of rain, but when you do have to drive down a highway, 55, 65 miles an hour in a rainstorm with other vehicles passing, you obviously need a windshield and a windshield wiper. I mean, I guess you could do it without it if you're street legal without it, but that did come in very handy. So as far as packing for this trip, I didn't really add anything. These are things that I always carry inside my Talon, but I'll just go over everything I do have. So, I had several breakdowns, basically had tools for everything to do it myself. I just have this like a little $25 Craftsman metric kit that I use numerous times. I do have a bag of bolts I carry around, M6, M8, M10 bolts and nuts, which I did end up using once. I do actually carry 2 air pumps because I'm just paranoid about one not working. This thing is huge. A smaller one would definitely be better, but I just like having the function where I can set the PSI and then it automatically shuts off when it gets to the predetermined pressure. Absolute must-have is, plug kit. Use this on the trailer and use this on the Talon once. Just remount the hole, run a plug or 2 into it depending on how big the hole is, pump it back up, you're on the road again. I always carry my Benchmade knife around. I've been carrying that around for over 20 years on every deployment. Just never go home without it. I do have my little Axia Alloys dome light, which also turns into a flashlight. My Leatherman. I do have some end wrenches here. Basically the standard sizes that you would use, 17, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8, and 6 millimeter. These are the ratchet, but of course you don't have to have the ratchet ends on them. If you do have a turbo kit, I highly recommend getting the 12 point instead of the 6 point because a couple of the bolts on the turbo kit, you'll need the 12 point to tighten them down. Have some 550 cord here, just a pair of snips, kinetic rope, and here's just kind of the details on the kinetic rope. It's 1/2 inch, 20 feet long, rated for 7,300 pounds. Of course, you only use the kinetic rope when you're doing a vehicle-to-vehicle recovery or, basically pulling somebody out that's stuck. Highly, highly, highly recommend that. Another thing, I do have just standard toe straps. So this is 30 foot long, rated for 3,000 pounds. I do carry 3 of these. So if you're in a low vegetation area and you need to hook to something to pull yourself out, by carrying 3 of those, I get a total of 90 feet. And then an extra 20 feet if I have to, plus my winch rope. And then, Honda loves their Allens, so I do have a metric Allen set, a crescent wrench, just in case there's something funky, a funky size. I do carry 4 extra lug bolts, of course a breaker bar, and I do have a 3/8 inch breaker bar for that. Just so it's compatible with the tool set I showed you earlier. Another thing that I packed that I was very happy I did was a power strip. And the reason I say that is, when you have a GoPro and you have multiple phones and you have a drone and all kinds of things you have to charge in a hotel, being able to get everything plugged in was very, very helpful. So right here is a battery pack. And the reason I carry the battery pack was actually for the navigation system. So the accessory outlet, when you plug it into the Talon, it likes to wiggle its way out, or if you hit a big bump, a little warning sign would come up like, oh, power's been disconnected, I'm gonna shut off in 30 seconds. So I found that very annoying, that I kept pushing the plug-in back in. So I just used this 20,000 battery pack right there to power this, and that worked flawlessly. I do have a bag of zip ties. I did use those a lot, especially with the trailer. And then here's just my drone. It's basically the size of my phone. That's a Mavic Mini. I do have 6 batteries and 2 charging packs there. So I would need 2 chargers for this, 1 charger for the remote, plus my GoPro, plus I would charge up my navigation, plus 2 phones. So basically filled up that strip. Let's see, oh, this is for my scissor jack that I carry around. Binoculars, you know, looking at game. I use those a lot. So this is basically everything that I carry in my Talon all of the time. And like I said, with this toolkit, I was able to change out the exhaust manifold, remove the turbo. When I was at the dealership and replaced the axles, everything here was enough. The only thing I had to borrow from the dealership was a 1 3/16 socket to remove the castle nut on the end of the axle. But other than that, everything you see here, basically I was able to repair everything, flat tires, breakdowns, everything. So this is what I carry in my Talon all of the time. So something else that I carry inside the Talon is the zip-in windows for above the door. And when I zip these in, it basically completely encloses the cab. And what I do is I just roll them up into these towels, and they fit perfectly behind the driver and passenger seat. So on the colder days, you know, if it, like we had a couple days where it was in the 30s, you could basically just zip these in. It takes 1 to 2 minutes per window, and turn on the heated seats or the heater or whatever, and we were completely comfortable the entire trip. So that's also something that I always keep in the Talon. And then kind of a backup to the backup, I downloaded an app called Here We Go. And this app was originally developed by Nokia for their phones, and it's completely free. So you can download the app, and then you can download each state. And I use this when I travel around the world. Like when I went to Australia last summer, I downloaded Australia on there. So basically how it works is you have all of the maps on your phone, and it will work when you don't have signal. So I do recommend adding Here We Go to your phone and using that as a backup. It has the majority of the roads. I mean, even a lot of the off-roading trails are on Here We Go. Completely free, a great backup when you don't have service. All right, so once you download Here We Go, this is what it'll look like when you open up the app. Of course, the green dot there is your exact GPS location. And then, so on the top left corner where the red dot is, you'll click on that and then click on Download Maps. So right here, this is a list of all the states I already have saved on my phone. So here in the bottom middle, you can just click on Download More and basically download anything in the world. So of course we would click on, you know, North America. Let's see, scroll down to the US, and then basically if you look over on the right side with the arrow pointing down, if you want to download that, you just click there, and then the check mark means that you already have it downloaded. So this is completely free and something I highly recommend that's going to work very, very, very well when you have zero service or signal.